The metal railing felt cold under Captain James Miller's hands as he stared through the reinforced windows of Earth Defense Platform Alpha. His weathered face reflected in the glass, illuminated by the distant stars and the occasional flash of alien ships passing through human space. 50 years of watching, waiting, and grinding his teeth had left deep lines around his mouth. Another council ship blazed past the station, not even bothering to send the courtesy notification they demanded from human vessels. Miller's knuckles turned white on the railing. The massive defense platform, humanity's proudest achievement before the council arrived, now served as little more than a glorified traffic monitoring station. "Captain, we have an incoming transmission from Council Oversight," said Tom, his young communications officer. The boy's voice carried that same tired resignation Miller had grown to hate hearing in his crew. Miller turned from the window, straightening his uniform more out of habit than necessity. "Put them through to my office." He walked past rows of monitoring stations, each staffed by officers who had trained for combat, but now spent their days logging alien traffic and filing reports. The message waited on his screen, its official council header glowing with artificial importance. Another list of restrictions, another set of rules about where human ships could and couldn't go in their own solar system. This time, they were reducing the permitted travel distance from Earth by another 10,000 kilometers. For humanity's safety and continued development. The message read, the same phrase they'd used for 50 years, since their ships first appeared in Earth's orbit, offering friendship with one hand while binding humanity with the other. Miller opened his desk drawer, pushing aside old reports to find his bottle of antacids. His doctor had told him the stress was eating holes in his stomach, but what else could he do? The council claimed humanity's violent tendencies made them dangerous, unready for true galactic citizenship. They needed guidance, protection, oversight. Pretty words for chains. Through his office window, he could see Earth floating below, beautiful and deceivingly free. The council's ships looked like stars moving against the black, but Miller knew better. They were watchers, wardens, always ready to help humanity avoid its worst instincts. A knock at his door interrupted his dark thoughts. "Enter," he called, closing the message. Lieutenant Mary walked in, her usual confident stride somewhat hesitant. "Sir, we've detected unusual activity near the Mars colony. Several council ships have changed course to investigate." Miller pulled up the sensor data on his screen. The ship's movement pattern was odd, too coordinated to be routine patrol. "Have they submitted their course changes to Earth control?" "No, sir. And they're not responding to standard hails." Something cold settled in Miller's chest. He'd seen too many accidents and unfortunate incidents over the years. The council never directly attacked. No, they were too clever for that. But things happened. Colonies faced unexpected problems. Research stations had system failures. And somehow, humanity always ended up more restricted, more contained, after each incident. "Alert Mars colony defense," he ordered. "Tell them to run full systems diagnostics and increase shield power. Make it look routine." "Sir, the council prohibits shield increases without prior approval." Miller stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "Lieutenant, I'm not watching another accident happen. Not today. Send the alert." As Mary hurried to comply, Miller walked back to the main observation window. The council ships were barely visible at this distance, but he could imagine their crews, so certain of their superiority, so convinced of humanity's need for their guidance. They had taught humanity patience, yes, 50 years of patience, but they had never bothered to ask what humanity might be doing with all that time. They never wondered what burned behind the forced smiles and polite compliance. Miller touched the small medallion under his uniform, feeling its familiar shape, not a decoration, a key, one of thousands distributed over the years, waiting for the right moment, because humanity had learned more than patience under the council's watch. They had learned preparation. They had learned deception. And soon, very soon, The Council would learn what happened when humanity's patience finally ran out. The red dust of Mars swirled against the dome of Colony Base 1 as Admiral Kate Wilson watched the emergency teams rush past. Warning sirens filled the air, their sound muffled by her sealed helmet. The colony's main reactor had failed just 20 minutes ago, and with it, the environmental systems that kept 15,000 people alive. Time, she asked, her voice tight. 17 minutes until complete system failure, responded her aide through the helmet comm. Backup generators are running at maximum, but they weren't designed for this load. Kate turned away from the dome window, walking quickly through the crowded emergency corridor. Engineers and technicians ran past her, carrying tools and replacement parts. Their faces showed the same expression, confusion mixed with growing fear. The reactor system had passed its maintenance check just yesterday. In the control center, screens display the colony's failing systems in angry red. Jack, the chief engineer, looked up as Kate entered. His face was streaked with sweat, despite the falling temperature. "This isn't normal failure, Admiral," he said, pulling up system diagrams. "Look at these patterns. The safety systems didn't just fail, they were disabled. All of them, at exactly the same time." Kate leaned over the display, her military training taking over as she pushed aside her anger. "Sabotage. Has to be. But our security logs show nothing. No unauthorized access, no system breaches. It's like..." He stopped, looking uncomfortable. "Like what?" "Like someone with technology way beyond ours just reached in and turned everything off." A message flashed on the main screen, an incoming transmission from the Council ships that had arrived suspiciously quickly after the reactor failure. Kate straightened her uniform and accepted the call. The alien face that appeared was familiar. Observer First Class, one of the Council's regular advisors to human colonies. "Admiral Wilson," it said, its translator making the words too smooth, too perfect. "We detect your colony is experiencing difficulties. We stand ready to assist." Kate kept her face neutral, decades of diplomatic training hiding the rage she felt. "Thank you, Observer. We are managing the situation. Our scans indicate complete system failure is imminent. We must insist on lending aid. For your people's safety, of course." Of course. The same words they always used. The same helpful tone that had accompanied every restriction, every setback, every accident that had pushed humanity further under the Council's control. "Admiral," Jack called out, "we've got something." A data burst just before the reactor failed. It's encrypted, but it's Council coding. The Observer's face didn't change, but its secondary eyes blinked, a sign of agitation in its species. "You seem to have matters well in hand," it said quickly. "We will remain nearby if needed." The transmission cut off. Kate turned to her aide. "Get me a secure line to Earth Command. Now." In her private office, Kate activated every security measure before accepting the call from Command. General Thomas's face appeared, looking as grim as she felt. "We lost 400 people before we got the emergency systems online," Kate reported. "And we have proof this time. The Council didn't just let it happen, they caused it." The general nodded slowly. "It matches what we found in their encrypted transmissions. They're calling it aggressive containment of the human problem." He paused, seeming to age years in moments. The Mars colony was just the start. They're planning more. Incidents. Anything to keep us dependent, controlled. Kate's hand went to the medallion she wore, identical to the one Captain Miller and thousands of other military officers carried. Not just a symbol, but a key to humanity's hidden strength. "How many more have to die, sir?" she asked quietly. "When do we show them what 50 years of preparation looks like?" The general's face hardened. "Keep monitoring their ships. Document everything." And Kate, he touched his own medallion. "Be ready, because when humanity's patience runs out, it's going to happen fast." Kate ended the transmission and stood at her window, watching the Council ships hover like vultures above her colony. They thought they were watching over children who needed guidance. They thought they were containing a primitive, violent species. They would learn, very soon, that they had instead been teaching humanity the most dangerous lesson of all, how to hide their true strength behind a mask of submission. Deep beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Robert Thompson walked through a vast chamber that officially didn't exist. His footsteps echoed off walls that were supposed to be solid rock, passing row after row of ships that humanity wasn't supposed to be capable of building. The Council's satellites passed overhead regularly, scanning the moon's surface with their advanced sensors. They saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see: mining operations, small research stations, and lots of empty rock. They never detected the quantum-shielded caverns that stretched for kilometers beneath their feet. "Test firing in 5 minutes," announced the overhead speaker system. Robert quickened his pace, reaching the observation room just as the final preparations began. Through the reinforced window, he could see his life's work, the prototype quantum cannon, its dark metal surface absorbing light in a way that made the eyes hurt to look at it. "Power levels stable," reported Anna, his lead engineer. She didn't look up from her screens, her fingers dancing across multiple control panels. "Quantum matrix aligned. Target drone is in position." Robert watched as the test drone, built to the exact specifications of Council ship armor, moved into place 2 kilometers down the test range. 50 years of studying their technology, of picking apart every piece of debris they carelessly left behind, had led to this moment. "Begin firing sequence," he ordered. The cannon hummed to life, a sound felt more in the bones than heard in the ears. Energy readings spiked across the monitoring stations. In the target chamber, reality itself seemed to bend slightly around the drone. Fire. There was no beam of light, no visible projectile. One moment the drone existed, its Council-grade shields at full power. The next moment, it simply came apart at the quantum level, its particles gently floating away like dust in sunlight. The room stayed silent for several seconds. They'd all seen the simulations, but watching it happen in reality was different. This wasn't just a weapon. It was proof that humanity had surpassed the very species that claimed to be protecting them from their own violent nature. "Send the data to command," Robert said quietly, "and then wipe every trace of this test from our systems." As his team began their careful data purge, Robert walked to another section of the facility. The main assembly chamber stretched out before him, larger than any cathedral humanity had ever built. Inside, row after row of ships waited in darkness. Not the simple vessels they showed the Council, but warships that incorporated every secret advance of the past 50 years. Project Dead Switch, they called it. A knife hidden behind humanity's back, while they smiled and bowed to their protectors. His comm unit buzzed, a priority message from Earth Command. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to Admiral Wilson. She looked tired, angry, but grimly determined. "Did the weapon perform as expected?" she asked without preamble. "Better." The quantum dissolution was complete. Their shields might as well be tissue paper. She nodded. "Good, because we just lost more people on Mars, and Command has seen enough." She touched her medallion, the same one Robert wore. "How quickly can your ships be ready?" Robert smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Admiral, they've been ready for years. We just needed a reason." "Then I suggest you begin final preparations. When the order comes, it's going to happen fast." She paused, her expression softening slightly. "The Council thinks they've been teaching us patience, Robert. They don't understand they've been teaching us something far more dangerous. How to hide." Robert finished. "How to wait. How to build something right under the noses of species that think they're so far above us." "Exactly. Maintain radio silence after this transmission. Use only quantum-encrypted channels for emergency communications." She touched her medallion again. "And Robert, when this starts, I want you on my command ship. The Council is about to learn that humanity's children have grown up in ways they never expected." The transmission ended, leaving Robert alone in the vast chamber with humanity's hidden fleet. Somewhere above, Council ships cruised past the moon, their sensors showing them nothing but what they expected to see. They never thought to look deeper. They never considered that their primitive charges might have learned to hide their teeth. Soon, very soon, they would learn their mistake, and Robert would be there to watch their realization that humanity's patience had been the deadliest weapon of all. The council chamber gleamed with artificial perfection as the human delegation sat through another lecture about their own good. Tom Baker, Earth's appointed representative, kept his face carefully neutral as the council's high observer announced the new restrictions. Inside his pocket, his hand clenched around his medallion until the edges bit into his palm. Furthermore, the high observer continued, its translator making the words flow like honey over steel. All human military installations must now accept permanent council oversight teams. This is, of course, for your own protection. Next to Tom, his aide quietly recorded every word, every slight movement of the council members. Some looked bored, others smugly satisfied. None of them showed even a hint of concern about how their decisions might be received. And what protection do we receive from these oversight teams? Tom asked, his voice carefully modulated to show just the right amount of respectful uncertainty, like the protection our Mars colony received. A ripple of movement passed through the council members. Not guilt, but annoyance at the mention of their recent operation. They hadn't even bothered to hide their tracks well. Why should they? Humans were too primitive to prove anything. The unfortunate incident at Mars was a technical failure, the high observer said smoothly. One that could have been prevented with proper oversight, which is exactly why. The chamber's main display screen flashed red, interrupting the practiced speech. A council technician rushed to respond to the urgent signal. Tom noticed how quickly the council members shifted in their seats, their composure cracking just slightly. High observer, the technician reported, the human research vessel Explorer has violated restricted space near the Jupiter defense perimeter. They are not responding to warnings. Tom felt his blood run cold. The Explorer was a civilian science vessel carrying 20 of Earth's brightest researchers on a council-approved mission to study Jupiter's moons. He knew its captain, Michael West, would never violate council restrictions without reason. The high observer's secondary eyes pulsed with what Tom had learned to recognize as satisfaction. Deploy security vessels. The humans must learn that restrictions exist for a reason. Wait. Tom stood, protocol forgotten. The Explorer is a civilian vessel. Let me contact them first. Sit down, Representative Baker, another council member said. This is precisely why we must increase our oversight. Your species simply cannot be trusted to follow simple rules. On the screen, 3 council warships moved to intercept the Explorer. Tom watched, feeling the weight of his medallion grow heavier with each passing second. He knew what was about to happen. They all knew, though none could stop it. The council ships fired without warning. The Explorer's minimal shields collapsed instantly. The research vessel broke apart in silence, scattering debris and bodies across the cold space near Jupiter. A regrettable necessity, the high observer intoned. Now, regarding the new oversight requirements. A signal cut through all channels, overriding even the council's secure frequencies. The face that appeared on screen belonged to Captain West of the Explorer. His message had been recorded just moments before his ship's destruction. This is Captain Michael West of the Earth vessel Explorer. His voice was steady, determined. We have discovered evidence in Jupiter's orbit of systematic council manipulation of human development. Mineral samples showing repeated sabotage of our colonies, radiation signatures from council weapons used against civilian targets. Everything has been transmitted to Earth Command through quantum channels. They killed us because we found proof. Remember us. Remember. The message cut off. In the sudden silence, Tom stood again, slowly this time. He looked at each council member, memorizing their faces, their expressions of shock and growing concern. Representative Baker, the high observer started, This is clearly a fabrication. No, Tom interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of 50 years of accumulated patience. This is clearly the end. He touched his medallion, sending the signal that would activate thousands of others across the solar system. You thought you were containing us, teaching us, protecting us from our violent nature. He smiled then, and several council members actually moved back in their seats at the expression. What you were really doing was teaching humanity the most dangerous lesson possible: how to wait, how to plan, how to hide our true nature behind a mask of submission. Through the chamber's windows, he could see council ships moving into defensive positions, their crews finally realizing something was very wrong. But it was far too late. You want to see humanity's violent nature? Tom asked quietly. Watch carefully. You're about to see 50 years of patience come to an end. Admiral Kate Wilson stood at the command center of humanity's hidden fleet, watching as thousands of medallions activated simultaneously across the solar system. Each point of light on her display represented a key turning, a seal breaking, a hidden door opening. 50 years of preparation unveiled in a single moment. All dead switch facilities report ready, her tactical officer announced. Lunar bases activated, belt arsenals online, all ships showing green status. Kate touched her own medallion one last time, feeling its edges press against her palm. Then she straightened her uniform and gave the order humanity had waited 50 years to hear. Execute Operation Awakening. Across the asteroid belt, massive rocks that Council sensors had dismissed as worthless debris split open like eggshells. Ships emerged from their hidden wombs, engines bright against the darkness. Not the primitive vessels the Council had expected, but warships built with 50 years of stolen and reverse-engineered technology. Council ships are responding. The tactical officer reported. Their formations are scattered. They're trying to regroup, but our emergence points have divided their fleet exactly as planned. Of course they were scattered. The Council had grown lazy, comfortable in their superiority. They'd stationed their ships to watch for primitive human vessels trying to escape their restrictions, not an organized fleet emerging from what they thought was empty space. Admiral, her communications officer called out, we're receiving panic signals from Council vessels. They're demanding to know how we acquired this level of technology. Kate allowed herself a small smile. Send them our prepared response. Text only. Across every Council command channel, in every Council language. The same message appeared. We learned patience from you. Now learn consequence from us. Multiple Council warships approaching from Jupiter's orbit, tactical reported. They're charging weapons. Launch quantum mines, Kate ordered. The weapons were another secret, developed in hidden laboratories by scientists who smiled and nodded at Council restrictions while working through the night to surpass them. The mines activated, invisible to Council sensors until the moment of detonation. Space itself seemed to twist around the approaching warships. When reality snapped back into focus, the Council vessels drifted powerless, their advanced systems torn apart at the quantum level. Council command vessel detected, her scanner officer announced. They're trying to coordinate a response. Put me on all channels, Kate ordered. When her officer nodded, she spoke clearly and calmly. This is Admiral Kate Wilson of the Earth Defense Fleet. For 50 years, you've claimed to protect humanity from its violent nature. For 50 years, we've watched you sabotage our colonies, kill our people, and dismiss us as children. She paused, watching as more Council ships found themselves trapped between hidden human battle groups. You taught us patience, taught us to smile and bow and accept your wisdom. Now we're going to teach you something. Never mistake patience for weakness. The Council command ship tried to respond, but Kate cut off their transmission. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta. Show them exactly what humanity has been doing with 50 years of enforced patience. Her fleet moved with practiced precision, implementing battle plans rehearsed in secret for decades. Council ships found their advanced shields useless against quantum weapons they didn't know existed. Their formations broke against attacks from directions their doctrine said primitive humans couldn't possibly threaten. Council fleet is in full retreat, Tactical reported, unable to keep the satisfaction from his voice. Their command ship is trapped between battle groups 3 and 7. Admiral, her communications officer called out, "We're receiving surrender signals from multiple Council vessels." Kate watched the tactical display, where humanity's hidden fleet had emerged from 50 years of shadows to trap their so-called protectors in a web of their own making. The Council ships looked smaller now, their once intimidating presence reduced to scattered points of light, trying to escape humanity's embrace. "Send to all Council vessels," she ordered. "Your surrender is accepted, conditional on the immediate rescinding of all restrictions on human development. We will accept nothing less than full recognition of humanity's sovereign status." She turned to look at her crew, seeing 50 years of suppressed anger and hidden strength in their eyes. "And send one more message, personal priority to the Council High Observer. The children you claim to protect have grown up. The only question is whether you're wise enough to accept that fact, or foolish enough to make us prove it further." Captain James Miller watched from his command chair as the Council's main battle fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near Earth's orbit. They had gathered ships from across 3 sectors, assembling the largest fleet humanity had ever seen. Under normal circumstances, it would have been terrifying. But these were not normal circumstances. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," his communications officer reported. "The High Commander demands our immediate surrender, or they'll reduce Earth's civilization to a pre-industrial state." Miller leaned forward in his chair, looking at the massive fleet through the bridge's main viewport. 50 years ago, such a sight would have forced humanity to bow their heads and submit. Today, it just made him smile. "Send no response," he ordered. "Let them come closer." The Council fleet advanced in perfect formation, their ships arranged in the same battle patterns they'd used to subjugate countless species across the galaxy. They never changed, never adapted. Why should they? Their technology had made them untouchable for millennia. "All defense platforms showing ready," his tactical officer reported. "Quantum grid is charged and stable." The massive platforms that the Council had dismissed as primitive orbital defense stations had shed their disguises. Gone were the simple weapon mounts and basic shields. In their place, quantum cannons extended from hidden compartments, and advanced energy fields rippled through space. "Council fleet entering optimal range," Tactical announced. "Their weapons are hot." Miller touched his medallion one last time, then let it fall free against his chest. "Initiate attack pattern Omega. Let's show them what humanity has learned about warfare in 50 years of watching their every move." The defense platforms activated simultaneously. Quantum fields that had been invisible even to Council sensors snapped into place, trapping sections of the Council fleet in bubbles of distorted spacetime. Ships that had traveled the galaxy for centuries found themselves unable to move, their engines straining against forces they'd never encountered. Multiple Council ships reporting drive failures, communications called out. They're asking how this is possible." "Now they ask," Miller said quietly. 50 years of treating us like children, and only now do they ask what we're capable of." He straightened in his chair. "All ships, execute attack plan Delta 7. Human vessels emerged from their hidden positions around Earth's moon, each one carrying weapons that had been developed in secret, tested in the darkness between worlds. The quantum cannons fired, their beams invisible until they struck Council shields. The supposedly impenetrable defenses that had protected Council ships for generations simply ceased to exist, their energy dissipating at the quantum level. "Council fleet attempting to regroup," Tactical reported. "Their formation is breaking." On his command screen, Miller watched the Council's perfect formations dissolve into chaos. Ships designed to fight in rigid patterns found themselves outmaneuvered by human vessels that had studied their every weakness. Weapons that had dominated space for centuries proved useless against defenses built specifically to counter them. "Their High Commander is requesting direct communication," communication said. Miller nodded. "Put them through." The Council High Commander appeared on screen, its alien features twisted in what Miller had learned to recognize as fear. How? It demanded. You were contained, restricted, primitive. No, Miller replied calmly. We were patient. We were watching. Every time you used your advanced technology, we studied it. Every time you demonstrated your tactical doctrines, we found their flaws. You didn't contain us. You gave us the galaxy's longest, most detailed military intelligence briefing. Another quantum cannon fired, and a Council heavy cruiser simply came apart, its atomic bonds dissolving into space. The High Commander flinched at the sight. Your species. It started, then seemed to struggle for words. The Council has ruled space for 10,000 years. Our technology, our methods, haven't changed in all that time, Miller finished. You stopped advancing because no one could challenge you. But humans, we never stop learning, never stop adapting. And thanks to you, we had 50 years to learn everything about how you fight. He leaned forward, looking directly into the alien commander's eyes. You taught us patience, taught us to wait, to watch, to endure. Now we're teaching you something. Never give your enemy time to study you. Because humans, we're very, very good students. Around Earth, the remnants of the Council's mighty fleet drifted in pieces or flowed in panic. Their invincible technology proved worthless against weapons they'd never imagined possible. Humanity's masks had finally come off, and the galaxy's masters had learned too late what they'd really been nurturing all these years. The Council's Grand Assembly Hall felt different now. Tom Baker walked its polished corridors, no longer as a supplicant, but as humanity's appointed representative to the new Galactic Assembly. The same ornate walls that once seemed to tower over him now felt smaller, more ordinary. Amazing what a change in perspective could do. Behind him walked Admiral Wilson and Captain Miller, their uniforms bearing new insignias that marked them as commanders of Earth's now acknowledged fleet. Dr. Thompson followed as well, his presence a reminder of how humanity had turned 50 years of restrictions into an advantage. They entered the main chamber where the Council had once lectured humanity about their violent nature. Now, representatives from 30 different species filled the seats, many of them former Council subjects themselves. The remaining Council members sat in a small section, their once elaborate robes replaced by simpler garments. The Assembly recognizes Earth's delegation, announced the new moderator, a member of a species that had spent even longer under Council protection than humanity. Please present your proposal for the Open Space Accord. Tom stepped to the podium, placing his old medallion beside the speaker system. It seemed fitting to keep it there, a reminder of how patience could be weaponized. For generations, he began, space was governed by fear disguised as protection, by restrictions claimed to be for our own good. That era ended when humanity's patience did. He paused, looking at the former Council members. But we didn't fight for freedom just to become new masters. We fought to end the mastery itself. The display screens activated, showing the proposed terms of the Open Space Accord. Not a set of restrictions like the Council had imposed, but a framework for genuine cooperation. Every species advances at its own pace. Tom continued. Every civilization finds its own path to the stars. The only true crime is denying others the right to walk that path. He gestured to Dr. Thompson, who stepped forward with data crystals containing humanity's technological achievements. Everything we developed in secret, every advancement we made, is included in these archives, free for any species to study, to learn from, to build upon. Because knowledge shouldn't be a weapon used to control others. It should be a torch that lights the way forward. Murmurs ran through the chamber as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just sharing technology. They were giving away the very advantages they'd used to overthrow the Council. Admiral Wilson stepped to the podium next. We learned two things during our 50 years under Council rule. First, that patience can be more powerful than any weapon. And second, that true strength comes not from controlling others, but from helping them stand on their own. She activated another display, showing the Quantum Defense Network's humanity, had already begun establishing around formerly restricted worlds. These defenses aren't controlled by Earth or any single power. They belong to each world they protect, ensuring that no species need fear domination again. Captain Miller took his turn, his weathered face carrying the weight of someone who had watched and waited for decades. The Council thought they were protecting the galaxy from humanity's violent nature. In the end, they taught us that violence isn't our true strength. Adaptation is. Learning is. And most importantly, helping others rise instead of keeping them down. The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives from dozens of species debated the implications, but there was no fear in their voices now, no careful measuring of words to avoid offense. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy's species spoke to each other as equals. Tom picked up his medallion, feeling its familiar weight one last time. "Let the record show," he said clearly, "that humanity's patience ended not just council rule, but the very concept of species dominating species. The new era starts with a simple truth. The only lasting peace is one where all can advance freely." He looked out at the assembled representatives, seeing hope replace fear in alien eyes. The council thought they were containing humanity's worst traits. Instead, they forced us to develop our best ones. Let that be the lesson that echoes through history. True power lies not in controlling others, but in helping them grow strong enough to stand beside you as equals. The vote that followed was unanimous. As the Open Space Accord became galactic law, Tom smiled at the former council members. They had wanted to erase the day humanity's patience ran out. Instead, they had helped create a day that would be remembered as long as species reached for the stars. Not as an ending, but as a beginning.